The late afternoon sun slanted through floor-to-ceiling windows of the Belmont Yacht Club's private dining room, casting long shadows across Italian marble floors. Marina Castellano moved between tables like a ghost, her white server's uniform crisp despite the humidity, her dark hair pulled back so tightly it might have been painted on. She was 24 and invisible. The members never looked at her face. Their eyes slid past her the way one might glance past furniture, necessary, functional, beneath notice. She refilled water glasses, cleared plates, murmured of course, sir, and right away, in a voice that had learned to take up no space at all. But Marina saw everything. She noticed which members drank more when their portfolios were down. She knew who was having an affair by the way they angled their phones. She could read a room's power structure in 30 seconds, who deferred to whom, who interrupted, who paid the bill. Today, she was working the ocean view room, reserved for what the club manager called significant transactions. Through the windows, the marina stretched out like a catalogue of obscene wealth, megayachts lined up like floating mansions, their chrome railings catching the light, their teak decks gleaming. Marina's feet ached. They always ached. She'd been on them since 5 a.m., working the breakfast shift at a different club across town, then rushing here for the lunch-to-dinner marathon. Her phone had buzzed twice with increasingly aggressive texts from her landlord. Rent was due. Rent was always due. She set down a crystal tumbler of 18-year Macallan in front of a man who didn't acknowledge her existence. He was mid-sentence, gesturing broadly. 42 million, and that was just the hull. The interior. Another 18. Custom everything. Murano glass, marble from the same quarry as the Pantheon. Marina's hand didn't shake as she poured. It never did. But something flickered behind her eyes, a brightness quickly shuttered. She'd spent her childhood on boats. Different boats. Different world. Her father had been a naval architect, her mother a maritime historian. They traveled the Mediterranean on research vessels, her father consulting on yacht designs for clients whose names appeared in Forbes, her mother authenticating historical vessels in private collections. Marina had learned to read blueprints before she could read chapter books. She'd learned Italian, Greek, and Turkish from shipyard workers. She'd learned the difference between a displacement hull and a planing hull before she turned 10. She'd learned that the sea could take everything. The accident had happened fast, a ferry collision in the Aegean, a series of catastrophic failures, investigations that went nowhere. Marina was 19, in her second year, at MIT studying marine engineering. The settlement from the shipping company barely covered the funerals. Her scholarship evaporated when grief made her miss too many classes. Student loans came due. Her parents' small estate was consumed by legal fees. 4 years later, she was here. Pouring whiskey for men who thought $40 million was a reasonable price for a toy. Marina. The club manager, Richard, appeared at her elbow. His smile was strained. We need you focused. The Whitmore party arrives in 20 minutes. This is a major acquisition meeting. 8 figures, possibly 9. Impeccable service, understood. Understood. And Marina. He lowered his voice. Mr. Whitmore is exacting. If anything goes wrong. It won't. Richard studied her for a moment, then nodded and walked away. Marina returned to her station, arranging fresh linens, checking the placement of each fork and knife with mechanical precision. She was very good at being invisible. She'd had years of practice. Through the window, she could see the megayachts bobbing gently in their slips. One in particular dominated the view, a sleek 180-footer with aggressive lines and a midnight blue hull. Even among the floating palaces, it stood out. Marina's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She knew that boat. She knew every boat in this marina. It was her private torture, working here, surrounded by the industry that had once been her entire world. She memorized the specs the way some people memorized baseball statistics, a compulsion she couldn't break. The midnight blue yacht was the Dominion. Recently purchased by Marcus Whitmore, tech billionaire, venture capitalist, self-made man, who let everyone know he was self-made. 180 feet. 5 decks. Helipad. Submarine. Price tag somewhere north of $120 million. Marina had researched it obsessively when it first appeared in the marina 3 months ago, the way one might press on a bruise. The specs were impressive. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. But there were things about it that bothered her. Small things. Details that didn't quite add up. She pushed the thoughts away. It didn't matter. Nothing about that world mattered to her anymore. Richard reappeared, snapping his fingers. They are here. Positions, everyone. Marina smoothed her uniform and clasped her hands behind her back, arranging her face into an expression of pleasant neutrality, the mask she wore so well it had almost become her real face. The dining room doors opened. Marcus Whitmore entered the way billionaires often did, not rushed, but purposeful, as if the room's oxygen content had adjusted itself in anticipation of his arrival. He was in his early 50s, silver-haired, wearing a navy blazer that probably cost more than Marina made in 6 months. His handshake was firm, his smile practiced. Behind him came an entourage, 2 lawyers in identical grey suits, a blonde woman introduced as his executive assistant, and a thin, nervous man carrying a leather portfolio. "Gentlemen, Samantha, please sit." Whitmore gestured to the table as if he owned it. Perhaps he did. Marina had learned that club membership at this level came with certain territorial assumptions. The second party arrived moments later. 3 men in expensive suits, led by a silver-bearded figure Marina recognized from Business News, Harrison Chen, CEO of Pacific Maritime Holdings, one of the largest shipping conglomerates in Asia. His English was perfect, his manner courteous but guarded. "Mr. Whitmore." Chen extended his hand. "Harrison. Good to finally meet face to face." Whitmore's smile widened. "Please, let's get comfortable. We have much to discuss." Marina moved forward with water, her movements precise and unobtrusive. She might as well have been a robot. No one looked at her. "Before we begin," Whitmore said, settling into his chair with the ease of a man accustomed to the best of everything, "I want to propose we conduct this meeting on my yacht. The Dominion. She's right here in the marina, we could be aboard in 5 minutes. Much more private. More comfortable. And frankly, gentlemen, I think you'll find her inspiring." Chen's expression didn't change. "That's very generous, Mr. Whitmore, but I insist." Whitmore leaned back. "You're considering a partnership worth $300 million. You should see how I operate. Besides..." His smile turned conspiratorial. "She's something special. 180 feet of pure engineering excellence. Custom everything. I had the hull designed by a team in Monaco, the interior by a firm in Milan. The stabilization system alone cost $4 million. Marina poured wine. Her hand remained steady. Chen glanced at his associates, who nodded subtly. "Very well. We appreciate the hospitality." "Excellent." Whitmore stood, and the room stood with him. "Marina, that is your name, isn't it?" He didn't wait for confirmation. Have champagne sent to the Dominion. The Krug. And those canapes, the tuna tartar things. And be quick about it. Of course, sir. Marina's voice was colorless. They swept past her toward the exit, Whitmore already deep in conversation about investment projections and market positioning. The dining room emptied in 30 seconds, leaving Marina alone among the abandoned place settings. She stood very still for a moment. Then she picked up her phone and texted the club's catering manager. Champagne and canapes for the Dominion. She'd have to deliver them herself, the junior staff weren't allowed on member vessels. 15 minutes later, she was walking down the dock, carrying a silver tray with 6 champagne flutes and a platter of canapes arranged like a geometry problem. The sun was lower now, painting everything gold. The Dominion loomed ahead, its midnight blue hull almost black in the changing light. She'd been on hundreds of yachts. This shouldn't feel different. But her heart was beating faster than it should. The Dominion's crew member met her at the gangway, a young deckhand who barely looked at her as he gestured her aboard. Main salon, up one deck. Marina climbed the teak stairs, her footsteps silent. The yacht was as impressive as she'd expected, clean lines, impeccable finish work, that particular smell of new money and older wood. But as she moved through the corridors, her trained eye caught things. Small things. The handrail on the main staircase was beautiful, polished mahogany, clearly custom. But the grain pattern was wrong for the era Whitmore claimed. She'd heard him tell someone it was salvaged from a 1920s racing yacht. Mahogany cut in the 1920s had a different cellular structure, a different density. This was modern, stained to look old. She filed the observation away and kept walking. The main salon was a cathedral of wealth, white leather, chrome accents, a chandelier that looked like frozen water. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the marina. The group was settled into low couches, Whitmore holding court. And the range is extraordinary. 8,000 nautical miles at 12 knots. We could go from here to Singapore without refueling. Marina set down the tray on a side table and began arranging glasses with practiced efficiency. She was furniture. She was air. The engineering is the real story, Whitmore continued, warming to his subject. Triple MTU engines, each producing 2,700 horsepower. Top speed of 22 knots. The fuel efficiency is achieved through a revolutionary hull design, a hybrid displacement planing concept developed specifically for this vessel. Marina's hands paused for a fraction of a second, then resumed their work. Chen leaned forward slightly. Revolutionary. How so? The designer, Francesco Mariani, one of the most brilliant naval architects in Europe, created a hull that transitions seamlessly between displacement mode for efficiency and planning mode for speed. It's patent-pending technology. Unique in the world. Marina poured champagne. The bubbles rose in perfect columns. Impressive, Chen said, though his tone was neutral. More than impressive. It's why this vessel represents the future of luxury maritime transport. And why, Whitmore gestured broadly, I'm confident that our partnership, combining your shipping infrastructure with my technological vision, will revolutionize the industry. Marina offered the tray of canapes around the room. No one acknowledged her. She was a pair of hands, nothing more. But her mind was racing. Hybrid displacement planing hull. Patent pending. Francesco Mariani. She knew Francesco Mariani's work. She'd studied it at MIT. She'd met him once, briefly, at a conference her father had taken her to when she was 16. He was a genius, yes, but his specialty was traditional displacement hulls for long-range cruising vessels. He'd published papers arguing against hybrid systems, calling them engineering compromises that sacrificed performance in both modes. And there was something else. Something about the way Whitmore had said 8,000 nautical miles. The Dominion's fuel capacity was listed in the yacht registry as 68,000 litres. With triple MTU 16V 2,000 minutes and 96 seconds, at 12 knots, the actual range would be closer to 6,000 nautical miles. Maybe 6,500 if the sea state was perfect. Not 8,000. Not with those engines. Not with that displacement. Marina returned to her position by the serving table, head slightly bowed, hands clasped. The documentation, Chen was saying. We'd need to review the technical specifications, of course. The sea trials data, the efficiency calculations. Absolutely. Whitmore nodded to the thin man with the portfolio, his assistant, Marina realized. Thomas has everything prepared. Full technical packet, independently verified by maritime surveyors. Thomas opened the portfolio and began distributing bound documents. Marina glimpsed technical drawings, charts, pages of calculations. As you'll see, Whitmore said, every claim is backed by data. The hull design, the engine performance, the revolutionary stabilization system, it's all documented. This isn't speculation. It's proven technology. Marina's eyes fixed on the documents as they passed from hand to hand. She could see one of the technical drawings from where she stood, just a partial view, upside down, but enough. Her breath caught. The drawing showed the hull cross-section. It was labeled as Mariani's work, dated 18 months ago. But Marina had seen Mariani's drafting style. She'd studied his work extensively. He used a specific notation system for marking water lines, a particular way of indicating frame stations. This wasn't his work. The line weights were wrong. The notation style was American, not European. And there, in the corner, a detail so small she almost missed it, the scale indicator used imperial measurements. Feet and inches. Francesco Mariani had trained in Italy, worked across Europe for 40 years, and had never, in any published work, used imperial measurements. He was notoriously precise about metric standards. Marina's pulse was loud in her ears. She looked at the yacht around her with new eyes. The beautiful surfaces. The perfect finishes. The impressive specs. What if none of it was real? What if the revolutionary hull design was fabricated? What if the range calculations were inflated? What if Whitmore was selling Chen a partnership based on a lie? $300 million. Chen was considering a $300 million investment. Marina's mind raced through the implications. If the Dominion wasn't what Whitmore claimed, if the technology didn't exist, if the specifications were fraudulent. This wasn't just business posturing. This was fraud. Criminal fraud. And she was standing in the middle of it, holding an empty champagne bottle, invisible to everyone in the room. Of course, Whitmore was saying, his voice smooth as the leather couches, I understand you'll want your own technical team to verify everything. That's good business. But I think once you see the performance data from our Pacific crossing last month. Mr. Whitmore. Marina heard her own voice before she'd consciously decided to speak. It sounded strange to her ears, too loud, too clear, cutting through the carefully modulated tones of wealth and power. The room fell silent. Every head turned toward her. Whitmore's expression shifted from surprise to irritation in less than a second. Yes? Marina set down the champagne bottle. Her hands were shaking now, but she clasped them together to still them. This was insane. She was a waitress. These were billionaires. This was none of her business. But $300 million. And a lie that could destroy people. Mr. Whitmore, she said again, her voice steadier now, could I ask you a question about the whole design? The silence in the room had weight. Whitmore stared at her as if she'd suddenly materialized from thin air, which, in a sense, she had. For the first time since she'd entered, he actually saw her. I'm sorry, he said slowly, who are you? Marina Castellano. I'm with the yacht club. She took a breath. I couldn't help overhearing your description of the whole design. The hybrid displacement planning system you attributed to Francesco Mariani. Whitmore's jaw tightened. And? Francesco Mariani doesn't design hybrid systems. He's published extensively against them. His most recent paper, in the Journal of Maritime Engineering, called them a compromise that serves neither purpose well. That was 8 months ago. The room had gone very still. Chen was watching her now, his expression unreadable. I think you're mistaken, Whitmore said, his voice taking on an edge. I've worked directly with Mariani. Then why are the technical drawings in your portfolio done in imperial measurements? Marina gestured to the documents still spread across the table. Mariani exclusively uses metric. It's one of his defining characteristics. He's given lectures about it. Thomas, the assistant, had gone pale. Whitmore's face flushed red. This is absurd. Who do you think you are, interrupting a private business meeting? I'm someone who knows boats. Marina's voice was quiet but clear. She stepped forward, and something in her bearing had changed. The invisible woman was gone. In her place stood someone else, someone who'd grown up in shipyards, who'd learned to read water and steel and power before she'd learned to read men. I'm someone who knows that your claimed range of 8,000 nautical miles is impossible with 68,000 liters of fuel and 3 MTU 16V 2000 M96 engines. The math doesn't work. Not at 12 knots. Not at any speed. The calculations were verified, Whitmore started. By whom? Marina turned to Chen. Sir, with respect, you should know that the fuel consumption rate for those engines at cruise speed is approximately 430 liters per hour total. With 68,000 liters of fuel, at 12 knots, the actual range is approximately 5,800 nautical miles. Maybe 6,000 in ideal conditions. Not 8,000. The laws of physics don't change just because someone writes a different number on paper. Chen's expression had sharpened. He picked up one of the technical documents, studying it with new intensity. Whitmore's voice went cold. This is outrageous. This woman is a waitress, and she's disrupting a major. The handrail in your main corridor, Marina continued, her voice gaining strength, is modern mahogany stained to look old. Not salvaged from a 1920s racing yacht. The cellular structure is completely different. Anyone with basic knowledge of historical wood could tell you that. She moved to the technical drawings spread on the table, picking up one with careful hands. This notation system, the way the water lines are marked, this isn't Mariani's work. I've studied his designs. I've read every paper he's published. This is someone copying his style, but getting the details wrong. Look here, she pointed to a series of markings. Mariani uses a 3-digit frame station system. This uses 4 digits. He marks buttock lines with solid strokes. These are dashed. These are small things, but they matter. They matter because they reveal that this drawing wasn't done by who you say it was. Get out. Whitmore stood abruptly. Get out of here before I have you fired and blacklisted from every club in the state. Mr. Whitmore. Chen's voice cut through the room like a knife. Let her finish. Whitmore froze. Chen looked at Marina, eyes sharp as broken glass. Continue. Marina's heart was hammering, but her voice stayed steady. The claim stabilization system, $4 million, you said. But looking at the yacht's structure, at the weight distribution, at the way she sits in the water, she gestured toward the windows. There's no advanced stabilization system on this vessel. There might be standard gyroscopic stabilizers, which are common on yachts this size and cost perhaps $500,000. But not a revolutionary $4 million system. The naval architecture doesn't support it. The displacement is wrong. The beam-to-length ratio is wrong. She set down the technical drawing and met Chen's eyes directly. This yacht is beautiful. It's well built. It's probably worth the $120 million Mr. Whitmore paid for it. But the revolutionary technology he's describing, the technology he's selling as the basis for a $300 million partnership, doesn't exist. The specifications are fraudulent. The documentation is forged. And if you invest based on these claims, you'll lose everything. The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Whitmore's face had gone from red to white. This is slander. This is, I'll sue you for every penny you. He turned to Thomas. Call security. Call our lawyers. I want her. Thomas. Chen's voice was soft. Show me the